So I started researching Chernobyl just because I was generally interested in it. And after a couple of weeks of just falling in love with these stories that were so heartbreaking and so shocking, I went to Carolyn Strauss, who is an executive producer of Chernobyl, along with myself and Jane Featherstone. And she and I went to HBO. And we said, here's what we want to do. And HBO said, okay.
And I said, I think the way I want to do it, if I do it, is to just start with the thing blowing up, because everybody knows it blows up. That's the one thing people know about Chernobyl. And just didn't want to do that typical hour of TV where it's like waking up and how you doing? Not beautiful day, you know? Just couldn't do it. I'm not a documentarian. I'm an entertainer. That's another reason why I think that sometimes when comedians or comic writers go to drama, they have a good track record. That leap is a good track record because they appreciate the audience. In comedy, the thought of boring someone or even just kind of being neutral for a while is a disaster. I have a phobia of people wanting to turn the TV off, wanting to look away. So in fact, the series was supposed to be 6 episodes. And I during the kind of structuring of episode 2 and 3, I realized, you know what? The events that are going on right now are kind of, there's a nuclear power plant on fire. I don't want to take breaths. I want this to feel breathless. So I'm compressing these 2 episodes into 1. And I said to HBO, can I do that? And they're like, yeah, of course. And then later, because I'd come out of movies, I didn't know, they pay you by the episode.
So how do you research something like Chernobyl? You start with pretty simple resources. I think everything can start with an encyclopedia of your choice, and then news articles that you find. And then you start to move into books that are summaries. But eventually, what you find is that's not enough. In the case of Chernobyl, there was a real challenge. There was 2 challenges, really, major challenges. One was that it's a story that comes out of the Soviet Union, and the Soviet Union, as we know, was not necessarily forthcoming with a lot of facts and information. This was not a society that featured a free flow of information or ideas. The other issue was that because of that restriction, there were a number of accounts that did come out that didn't always agree. So part of the challenge was figuring out which of these accounts felt the most accurate. By and large, I tended to default to accounts that were less dramatic. You'd think that maybe I would want to go for the more dramatic ones, but my instinct was, in telling a story like Chernobyl, you never want to feel like you're helping the drama. The drama is dramatic enough. The tragedy is tragic enough.
We had some wonderful material, first-person accounts that we were able to read. Voices of Chernobyl is a wonderful book. You got a great sense of a certain kind of feeling from that. But then talking to people who were there. I interviewed people who grew up at the time, asked about all sorts of questions. I had one woman who's who grew up in Soviet Ukraine. I had her read everything and give me notes to fix cultural mistakes. In the very beginning, Legasov puts food out for his cats, and I had, puts cat food in bowls. She was like, we didn't have cat food. They ate what we didn't eat.
We also spoke a lot with people who just generally had grown up in that time in the Soviet Union, in Ukraine, in Belarus, and just spoke to them about how their lives functioned on a day-to-day basis. I had them, a number of people, read through the scripts to say, does this feel culturally accurate? Have I made mistakes? What would you suggest would be more true to your experience?
The scene where everyone's gathered on the bridge in episode 1, and they're looking out at the burning power plant, and there's ash coming down on them. The dialogue is as on page and the descriptions of everybody, but essentially they're there and they're looking at this thing. And when Johan cut it together, he's just looking at the people on the bridge and they're talking and we can't see what they're looking at. And I'm like, what the f is this? Did he forget? Because we shot it. And they're just talking about this thing that we can't see. And then we finally get to that line where the woman says,
oh, it is beautiful.
And then he goes behind them in this wide shot and you go, oh. And that is the kind of thing that he would do. Like, he was smart that way about those things all the time. Actually, it wasn't the events that I worried about people not believing. It was the decisions people made that were so inexplicable There were times where people did something and I thought, I don't even know if I can put that in here because I can't justify it at all. It was the level of delusion and denial was sometimes too hard to take, and I just felt people were gonna feel like I was pushing it. Writing something like Chernobyl is a very intimate act, and the only way you're gonna be able to be as original as you wanna be and as creative as you wanna be is to just be able to do it in your own head at light speed when you need to, or just sit alone and wait when you need to. When people say there's a problem with the tone of your script, I think really they're saying there's a problem with the characters in your script. It's character. The characters are different. If I believe the character and I believe the situation, therefore I have the math required to create a believable situation with that character. Meaning, how does that character respond? How do they react? What do they do? Now I have a scene. So the tone is true to the characters. The one tone police thing that I was really careful about was I wanted no hint, zero hint of romance between Legasov and Khomyuk. Because you can just feel bad television going there.
I always felt that the story needed to be told in a certain way, and that way was respectful of the audience, respectful enough to say, you all know that this thing blew up. I'm not gonna make you wait 5 episodes for anything to blow up, nor am I gonna even make you 1 episode for something to blow up. It's not about the explosion. I wanna show you what it's really about. And I want to tell the story through the lens of people. And these are the 3 people I wanna do it with, and that's how I'm gonna go. Now, in between all of that, a million changes occur and things develop and emerge, but the basic point of view of how I wanted to tell the story was there with me from the start.